Well, looky here, looky here.
Hi.
Look what the hockey season dragged into the Go-Goat Sports
Wearing our
studio.
hat, no less.
He's
Doing
wearing
my
our
best.
hat. He's in S&B Cobalt Blue. Patrick Johnston, the Province and Post Media Tuesday regular with us. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good to see you.
I'm well.
Yeah.
Are you well?
Are we not afternoon?
I jumped the gun. Okay. We're almost afternoon. But
All right.
Good day.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
Plenty of happenings with these Vancouver Canucks, and we're a few days into preseason.
Yeah.
I mean, talked about it yesterday. Canuck luck strikes again. Brock Boeser. Number one, how worried would you be getting with Brock Boeser and the injury history? And number two, what do you think of Garland in the Boeser spot beside Miller and Pearson as they practice today at UBC?
I mean, it was something I looked at after J-Pat got the great quote from him on, was that Thursday?
Was a great quote.
This is the year. Because he's a guy, you're not, we don't root, you know what I mean? But you root for this guy. I got a really nice email, by the way, after my story about just talking about the sort of refresher, how he feels fresh. I sort of said, is there pressure or do you feel like a weight off because of your, having to deal with your father and all the emotions that came with it? And he said, no, I feel, this is the year. I mean, that's where that set up Jeff's question.
Yep.
But, you walk away and you sort of go, okay, what is the record? And you look at it and, he was on pace. He's been on pace every year.
Every year.
To do this. And it came up one short in his rookie year and then got hurt. And it is something I said, man, is he just going to be one of those guys? I thought that to myself, where it's just, everybody, it happens.
Which is more peculiar. He's never been a 30-goal scorer. Elias Pettersson's never been above 70 points. Like both of those don't seem right.
I know.
And some of that is the reality of the modern NHL and the sort of grind, and also teams in general, I think, being more cautious.
Yeah.
And also, I think probably the state of play with the Canucks. I have to believe that in a couple of those seasons, every injury has been a rather severe one, so maybe it might not be true, but maybe he plays a few more games because they're in a playoff race, what have you. It is. It is something I thought about even when he sort of put his foot down, said this has to be it, and then 2 days later does something to his hand in practice. We didn't even see it. It wasn't like he left the ice.
No.
He finished practice, and then he wasn't there for the scrimmage. And it was funny. Bruce Boudreau said something about me. He made a crack about a thumbnail or something.
Yeah.
And I remember walking away. So did he hurt his thumbnail? Like, did he hurt his thumb? Is that what? Did Bruce too on the nose?
I texted you Sunday, and I was like, what do you think's up with Boeser? And you said there's a crack. Bruce made a crack about a thumbnail. And I perceived that as, it's just small potatoes. Like, whatever it is, he'll be fine. And sure enough, no, he was actually giving us the body part.
Maybe that was the first symptom, and underneath that was a broken thumb. Maybe, who knows?
So Garland in that spot. I mean, we put it on the Bodog poll question yesterday. Everybody yelled at us about why not Nils Höglander and said, look, Höglander is an option here if he just doesn't want to disturb the other lines. But clearly he has disturbed the other lines because Garland practiced with Miller and Pearson, and it's Nils Höglander with EP40 and Kuzmenko. So with no Mikheyev there.
You look at that line and what it needs and what is Höglander. Garland is, I think, in the end, a better player, and JT Miller, in theory, is your number one center. So, it's also trying to figure out your different combinations and how things are all going to shake out. And you look at Horvat, Podkolzin, and Lazar. Is it really going to be Podkolzin, Horvat, Lazar, or are you going to drop Pearson there? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of how all these things go together, and it's just, let's see what this looks like.
And let's see when Ilya Mikheyev gets back, too, right?
Yeah. So it's also Tuesday. It's also Tuesday after training camp started on Thursday. So we'll see. But it all makes sense. To me, if you gone the other way and kept Garland or put Garland with Pettersson, put Höglander, it's all a little bit of shuffling.
You were the first one I saw write or say DeKeyser doesn't look like he's worthy of a contract. Jim Rutherford said yesterday to Dollywall, basically, we need to see more out of DeKeyser. The reports in Whistler was that he looked a little sluggish, that maybe all the years and injuries had affected his mobility, although he looked better in the game. Here we are, 5 days into the Danny DeKeyser experiment. Do you think he's a Canuck come regular season?
I understand why you look at guys like that, because you're in a spot. Like, you're like, we think Rathbone can be the guy, but hockey teams are conservative, and here's a guy who's been in there before. I think it was you pointed out last week that, you can bury his contract if they were to sign him. It's not like they're risking anything by signing him to a league minimum.
They probably have to pay him. It'll be a one-way deal.
Yeah, they'd have to pay him, but I think we'll see how things plays out. They have said, even from last year, that they want Jack Rathbone to make this team. They want to see that happen. And on Sunday, we saw Bruce Boudreau ride him because he's like, this guy needs to play. Like, he needs to see how this game works at this level. Now, obviously, Sunday's game is far from a regular NHL game, but the talents are there. The DeKeyser, in contrast as well, is that perpetual NHL thing as well. At least he's big. Mm-hmm.
And should know how to play the game defensively, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the spot for Danny DeKeyser that if you have been robbed of some of your agility, mobility, foot speed, quickness, whatever the case may be, this is where the hockey IQ has to take over, and you've got to play smart and sound positionally, and then maybe you're still an NHL defenseman known for defending.
And Dermott, we don't know why, or necessarily as we're talking, we don't know why Dermott left the ice, but this is an example of, what do you have when your left side guys goes down? I mean, you can move Hughes back over. You have a few options. Boudreau himself said, we played a bunch of right shot guys. We played Pullman on the left. We played Shen on the left last season. It's not like we were afraid of that. But it is the depth chart isn't all that strong beyond even what's there.
No, but you've got older guys whose mobility, and I'm not saying that DeKeyser moves like Myers or OEL, because those guys are far more fleet of foot, but it's still on a scale. On the NHL scale, you've already got OEL, you got Myers, you've got Pullman, you've got Shen. Do you really need another guy like this? If DeKeyser's not very good, I don't know that you need to add to that quiver of aging players.
Well, here's the thing. I heard this listening to our friend David Alter on his Rink-Wide Toronto podcast. The Leafs played 12 defensemen last year.
Right.
Philly did 2.
Yeah.
Now, some of that is COVID related. I don't think you're probably going to go as deep as 12. But 9 or 10?
Yeah. And 9 or 10 means looking at someone like Guillaume Brisebois again, or Noel Juleson, or Christian Wonlander.
Juleson was okay, I thought.
Juleson was, I mean, he is what he is. You can see why he's a tweener.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly a case, I suppose, against having DeKeyser as an extra option, especially if you are able to park him down there. It's not nothing he did. That's right. Nothing he did at training camp said, this is a guy, oh my God, this guy has to be a team. You can see this is why this guy's on a PTO.
They found somebody, as opposed to, and again, not that I'm saying Sonny Milano is going to be a flame, but you can see why he's brought in. Like, he's going to do something that makes you think, we might have room for this kind of a guy.
Well, yeah, and like I said, you have to see. I mean, in the end, you can write your team down saying, I think this guy's going to be in the line, I think this is going to be in the line. But now you have to actually sit and see it. And you're like, yeah, okay, Rathbone's ready. We're comfortable with that. But I mean, it is a little bit with DeKeyser. It's like, you got to make sure everything's squared away. And you got to think about your what ifs.
You said they want Rathbone in the line, and I don't dispute that at all. But he's still got to live up to that.
Yeah.
Did you like the early signs in that preseason game? I mean, he seemed to know that he was being given the mantle in that game, and he seemed to willingly take it and push the envelope on a few occasions. Again, I called it a detuned Quinn Hughes sort of look. Like, it wasn't quite to that level, but it was in the same vein.
He's a smart. I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
He's captain of Harvard.
Yeah.
And certainly has always shown to seem that he has the work ethic, and he skates with a bunch of NHLers in the summer, and he's aware of the pace of the game. I think the fact that he was able to finish so well last year after what was really sort of a disappointing start, not getting to play a ton, not playing all. He wasn't that great. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't that great. Didn't get a lot of ice time either, but didn't do anything to say I need to be here.
No.
Then he got hurt in Abbotsford. Was out for a long time. Then he finally got back in, and he really shone in a way that his new bosses like impressed his new bosses.
Yeah.
And
he looked like a star in the AHL.
yeah, he was a star in the AHL
at a young age, and that's what you want that guy to do.
And that's exactly what you want. So that's why you think there's progression there, not just on reputation, but on actual performance. And so they have to hope that that's going to work. And it is, I think, part of the equation of the Quinn Hughes on the right stuff, because if you put Quinn Hughes on the right, then there is a clear spot for Rathbone to play in. You just have to be convinced that he is going to be able to, not get overwhelmed defensively. You know, he's good enough. He shouldn't be, even if he's a smaller guy. Like, he's been playing this way his whole life. It's just now dealing with the pace of the game and the sort of intensity of the game. And
could he grab a top 4 spot?
Well, I mean,
is that crazy?
It comes down to how do all your how do all your combinations work, right? Like, is that playing with Myers? Is that playing with Pullman? Like, they the Jim Rutherford conversation I had last week, he's basically, like everyone else, brings up, well, we want to see how Pullman is. We want to see what he's about.
A lot of talk about Tucker Pullman, yeah.
But
yeah, well,
sort of, I'm making a bit of a face to that one because I don't get it. But
I think we all are. But I think they're pretty much they inherited a awful contract from the previous administration, and are hoping
we want to see
to
how
get
the
the most
$2.5 million defenseman does.
Incidentally, I said Toronto and Philly used 12. The Canucks used 13 last year.
Yeah,
Chicago, Florida, the Kings, and Montreal used 14 defensemen.
Yeah, and a lot of that was, like you said, a lot of that was COVID.
Some of that was COVID, yeah. But every time you think you have enough defensemen, just go get more. I wish Rathbone spoke with a wicked awesome New England accent. That's the only thing missing.
Wicked smart.
Yeah, exactly. I wish he spoke like he had parked the car
nice
at Harvard
boy.
Packed. You wrote about Russian conscription.
Oh, yeah.
On the weekend, and things have only gotten a little testier.
Yeah.
Do the Canucks still have forward depth?
I'm just glad all three of them are over here.
Oh, totally.
And I'm glad also that the kid they cut yesterday, the defenseman, Russian defenseman, is going to Sault Ste. Marie and not somewhere back to Mother Russia. Now, Mikheyev would be too old, although the rules are sort of...
We're seeing news stories.
The shrug emoji.
Yeah.
But Podkolzin and Kuzmenko are the prime age. Now, usually there are exceptions for student visas and athletes, right?
There seem to be.
But those are at the pleasure of Mr. Putin and whether he wants to revoke them.
Yeah, and one of the things is that in theory, the mobilization affects people who have already done their service. They're already trained. And, one of the things that's not necessarily clear is like Vasily Podkolzin, because I couldn't find it. I had this dim memory of someone saying that he had sort of satisfied the requirements or whatever, but I haven't actually been able to confirm that, partly because understandably, I think Dan Milstein doesn't really want to talk about it, or at least he's not getting back to me about it.
And that has been the NHL tactic here. Basically, don't say anything that would antagonize them and hope it goes away. Which is very much an ostrich approach here.
Well, yeah. I mean, I actually did appreciate the answer that the NHL's Gary Meager, who's their main spokesperson, gave me, which was that, we don't think it's going to affect them in their ability to complete this season. And you're like, it's a lot of...
This season was the operative phrase there. It may well, if they go back home.
Yeah, and I mean, we can see it, but I talked to an old family friend, Neil McFarlane, who's a professor at Oxford and is one of the world's sort of Putin experts. And I said, well, and he goes, he said they would not be smart to go back anytime in the next few months, I don't think. So, and it's we've seen one player, was it Fedotov, has been conscripted and sent off to Siberia, at least for now. Who knows where he ends up. Obviously, hundreds of thousands of Russian men trying to leave the country because they're like, well, this is my limit. It's a tough scene. I mean, by the way, I was sent. Remember, we discussed the Sakha Republic and Kuzmenko and the fact that he might be part indigenous.
Oh, right. Yes.
Oh, yes.
From Eastern
I had
Russia,
someone send to me that there has been a roundup of people in that region. So I do not think that exempts you, despite what someone claimed on Reddit.
That might be where they go first.
Well, that's traditionally, that's it. Traditionally, what they've done is they recruit from smaller, poorer areas because it's a good job.
Or they feel that people are disposable too.
But in general, people have been amenable to it. Now we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's a tough situation, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, there is a reason why Danil Klimovich stayed here all summer. Mm-hmm. Like, he didn't go back to Belarus. There's a reason why he married his girlfriend. I think those are pretty obvious. That I think he was worried he might not be able to come back.
Yeah.
Or had so it's a tricky situation for those guys, and obviously a terrible situation in Ukraine, and you all hope it all resolves soon. But
the longer the season for the Canucks, the better.
Let's end on a brighter note than draft cards. Bodog, Paul, question: do the Canucks have a franchise player?
No, it could be Elias Pettersson.
Mm-hmm. They have the makings. They have the ingredients.
You're like me. I voted there could be 3 by the end of the year, but as we sit right now, I define franchise player narrowly.
It could be Quinn Hughes. I think it could be Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
I think he's probably the closest.
Yep.
It's all about the season. I mean, he was guys, on Saturday, he was so electric in that scrimmage, and you're like, I see it. Mm-hmm. I see this. And we had a great conversation with him about it. I had a great conversation with Ed Jovanovski.
Oh.
And I'm going to write a little thing about this.
Oh, cool.
Ed called me while they're dealing with the incoming hurricane. I was just like, Ed, he wanted to talk hockey. But because I texted him, I sort of sat there and thought, wait, there is a story from Canucks past of a player switching sides, playing on the right side.
Well, here's the thing. Quinn Hughes had his career-high year last year.
High draft pick with tons of expectations, too, right? And Jova.
Quinn Hughes had his career-high year last year, and I think he was less electric than he's been in previous years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, if those two things, if the electricity to the eye and the production can mold together, my goodness, what would that look like?
It's probably a smaller part of the equation than the point totals, but he was really good defensively last year, and he was really bad defensively the previous year. If he gets better defensively from here, then I might even be able to accept a lower point total and say, yes, he is franchise defenseman, or he's even better than 68 points.
The thing that fascinates me is the sort of putting him with the OEL and the potential that pairing has to be a true dominant pairing, which puts less pressure on the other 4 to simply just be adequate, which it's still, there's a lot to navigate through.
Well, if they played 25 minutes each.
But if you have a power pair, and Hughes, when we talked to him on Saturday after camp, and we talked about, I asked him a bit about, there was a sequence where he started on the right, rushed in, cut through the slot, or top of the slot, drew basically all the defenders with him, ended up on the left boards. While this is all happening, OEL goes for a change. Kyle Burrows is the one who steps on, even though Kyle Burrows is the right defenseman, and slides in and gets the pass from Hughes, and he has this huge gaping gap. And you can all of a sudden see, like, I asked him a bit about that. Hughes took it in a bit of a different direction, because what he really wanted to say, well, Oliver understands the way he basically was implying he understands the way I understand the game. Yeah. And even if OEL's now an older player, is not as necessarily as quick as he used to be, he certainly understands the game as well as he always did. And if they click, that could be a truly devastating combination. And that you can see why they want to see if this will work, and it's really exciting. And if it does work, he could have this incredible season, because the other thing is, and this is the other point I tried to make, was that when he's playing on that side, collects the puck at the right point, he's already facing the net, and he can shoot, like he's in a shooting position. When you're coming off the left, you have to reset your feet, and it's a different way to play. And he was just like, it actually gives me more places to move the puck to. And that's, he played it when he was a kid. That's why he liked it so much playing as a kid. And someone else, I said, I brought back cover point, the old hockey position, but someone else said to me, it's a point guard. He's a driving point guard. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's an interesting idea.
You're an interesting idea.
Oh,
you're full of them.
I said basketball. I looked at you, and I thought you were going to.
Thank you for coming on into studio. We always like getting visitors, and particularly you.
Happy to be here.
Patrick Johnston, everybody, the Province and Post Media, joins us on Tuesdays. Follow his work. He's got a big story coming up with Ed Jovanovski.